On a freezing night in April 1912, the ocean claimed a giant, the grandest passenger liner ever constructed, sank on her very first voyage. Over 1,500 people lost their lives in the calm, icy water, leaving the entire world wondering how an unsinkable ship could collapse. For over a century, people believed it was just a giant iceberg, but modern science reveals a complex web of engineering and human mistakes. So let us break down the real physical forces that triggered this disaster. To understand what happened, we must look back at her ambitious construction. Built by Harland and Wolff for the famous White Star Line fleet, Titanic was designed to be the ultimate symbol of industrial human power. Her creators declared that modern technology had made sea travel completely safe. She featured 16 watertight compartments built directly into her massive lower hull. Heavy electric doors could seal off those spaces at a single button press. The ship could remain floating even if 4 whole compartments filled with water. Engineers believed no ocean collision could ever flood more than 4 chambers. This supreme confidence created a false sense of security among officers and crew. Speed was prioritized over caution as she raced across the Atlantic Ocean. Captain Edward Smith was eager to set a record-breaking crossing time for White Star, but beneath the surface lay a critical flaw in the ship's physical layout. The watertight bulkheads did not extend all the way up to the ceiling decks. They were left open at the top like compartments inside an ice cube tray. If water filled one section too high, it would simply spill into the next, creating a continuous domino effect that would drag the entire bow down into ocean. This fatal design oversight remained completely hidden until the night of the crash. Meanwhile, engineers faced another massive challenge in the ship's construction materials. Over 3 million individual rivets were used to hold steel plates together tight. Workers hammered steel rivets by machine in the central heavy section of ship, but the narrow bow and stern sections had to be hammered manually by hand. Because hydraulic machines could not fit into the sharp curve of the bow, suppliers used lower-quality slag-rich wrought iron for those manual bow rivets. High concentrations of slag made iron rivets far more brittle in cold temperatures. When struck by heavy force, these slag-heavy rivets would snap instead of bending. Modern metallurgical testing on recovered hull rivets proved this critical material weakness. The steel plates themselves contained high levels of sulfur and phosphorus elements. In freezing water temperatures, this chemical makeup caused severe steel embrittlement. Instead of flexing under massive pressure, the hull plating shattered like glass. Yet despite these hidden manufacturing weaknesses, Titanic set sail with total confidence. Her voyage proceeded smoothly across the ocean for the first 3 days, but by April 14th, environmental conditions in the North Atlantic changed dramatically. An Arctic cold front plunged sea temperatures down below the freezing point, driving massive ice fields far further south than captains usually ever expected. Throughout the day, surrounding ships transmitted urgent radio messages warning of ice. Steamships like Mesaba and Californian sent precise coordinates of dangerous ice fields. However, wireless operators Jack Phillips and Harold Bride were overwhelmed with work. The ship's wireless transmitter had broken down completely the previous night before. Operators spent hours repairing equipment and accumulated a huge backlog of telegrams. Wealthy passengers paid high prices to send personal marconograms to relatives ashore, so when crucial ice warnings arrived from other ships, they were delayed. The final critical Mesaba warning containing precise ice locations never reached bridge. On the bridge, officers remained completely unaware that ice fields surrounded them. Another extraordinary atmospheric factor made spotting icebergs almost impossible that night. A thermal inversion created a cold layer of air beneath warm air. This thermal inversion bent light rays upwards, creating a false optical horizon. A subtle haze blurred the boundary where sea met the dark sky. Icebergs were disguised against the hazy dark background until ships drew close. Additionally, the ocean surface was unusually calm with absolutely no ocean waves. Without breaking waves crashing against the base of icebergs, no white foam formed. Whitewater foam was the primary signal lookouts relied on to spot ice. High up in the crow's nest lookouts, Frederick Fleet and Reginald Lee watched, but the lookouts faced a crucial missing tool in their observation nest. The binoculars were locked inside a storage locker before leaving port dock. Second Officer David Blair was reassigned at the last minute before sailing. In the sudden rush to leave, Blair accidentally carried the locker key away. Without binoculars, lookouts had to rely entirely on their naked eyes alone. At 11:37 p.m. lookout, Frederick Fleet spotted a dark mass ahead. He struck the lookout warning bell 3 times to signal imminent danger ahead. Fleet grabbed the telephone and shouted "Iceberg right ahead" to Bridge Officer Murdoch. First Officer William Murdoch had only 37 seconds to react and maneuver. Murdoch instantly ordered hard a starboard to turn ship away from Iceberg. In 1912 navigation language, hard a starboard meant turning ship left port. He also threw telegraph levers to full astern to reverse steam engines. However, reversing engines actually reduced water flow across the central ship rudder. Without fast water streaming over rudder, the ship turned far more slowly. Physics proves Titanic would have turned faster if engines stayed full ahead. The massive ocean liner swung slowly, but it was simply too late. At 11:40 p.m. underwater iceberg spurs sideswiped the starboard bow. Passengers on upper decks felt only a mild tremor rumble through ship. Down in forward boiler rooms, firemen witnessed catastrophic underwater destruction unfold. Iceberg force popped rivets open and unsealed seam lines across bow. The damage created thin, open gaps along 300 feet of hull. 6 forward compartments were breached and rapidly flooded with cold ocean water. Chief designer Thomas Andrews inspected damage with Captain Smith immediately after. Andrews performed rapid mathematical calculations using ship weight and compartment volume. He delivered a chilling verdict to Captain Smith in the captain's cabin. 4 compartments flooded meant staying afloat, but 5 made sinking mathematically certain. With 6 compartments open to sea, Titanic had at most 2 hours left. Water weight and forward bow pulled ship nose down into ocean water. As bow sank, water rose above bulkhead tops and spilled backward into deck. Water pumps operated at maximum capacity but could not keep up with inflow. 7 tons of seawater flooded inside hull every single second that passed. Captain Smith ordered distress rockets fired into night sky to summon aid. Wireless operators sent continuous CQD and new SOS distress calls over radio. Nearby steamship Californian was stopped in ice field only miles away night. Californian wireless operator Cyril Evans had turned off radio set and slept. Californian officers saw Titanic distress rockets but misidentified them as company signals. 40 miles away, steamship Carpathia received distress signal and turned around fast. Carpathia Captain Arthur Rostron pushed engines beyond safe limits to reach Titanic, but Carpathia was 4 hours away and could not arrive before Titanic sank. On deck, crew began preparing wooden lifeboats for evacuation of women and children, but a severe shortage of lifeboats trapped more than half on board. Original ship designs called for 64 lifeboats to cover every passenger. Designers reduced total number down to 20 lifeboats to keep deck uncluttered. White Star Line executives wanted open ocean view promenades for wealthy passengers. British Board of Trade safety regulations were dangerously outdated by 18 years. Maritime law mandated lifeboats based on ship tonnage rather than passenger count. Titanic legally required lifeboats for only 960 people total. Even 20 lifeboats were actually more than legally required by British law. Crew members had never conducted a full lifeboat drill during maiden voyage. Chaos and confusion broke out during early loading process on boat deck. Initial lifeboats lowered into ocean were half empty due to false confidence. Many passengers refused to leave warm, comfortable ship for small, dark rowboats. Crew feared davit ropes would snap if lifeboats were loaded to capacity. Davits were actually tested to support full load without breaking under weight. Hundreds of open seats were wasted in first hour of evacuation process. By 1:30 a.m. ocean water reached forward bow nameplate Titanic. Panic erupted as realization set in that ship was truly sinking fast. Stern raced higher into air as bow plunged deeper into abyss. Massive bronze propellers lifted completely out of ocean water into freezing air. Immense gravitational strain concentrated at midship engine keel support structure area. Top decks were subjected to extreme tension forces pulling steel apart, while lower keel structure experienced massive compression force squeezing steel tight. Ship structure was engineered to support weight floating flat on water, not to be suspended half in air like a giant cantilever beam. At 2:18 a.m. Titanic reached structural breaking point at expansion joint. Steel deck plates ruptured with deafening sound heard across calm water. Ship snapped completely into 2 separate pieces between third and fourth funnels. Flooded bow section broke free and began plunging straight to ocean floor. Detached stern section briefly settled back flat on water surface level, before filling rapidly with seawater and pivoting vertical into night air. At 2:20 a.m. stern disappeared beneath ocean into complete dark as bow section plummeted 12,500 feet down into darkness. Her hydrodynamic shape allowed her to glide smoothly through water column, reaching speeds of over 30 miles per hour before hitting seabed. Bow struck ocean floor nose, first plowing deep into thick mud. Severe impact forces crushed lower hull decks together like an accordion. Stern section contained trapped air pockets as it descended to bottom. Implosion occurred as water pressure crushed air-filled compartments violently inward. Stern twisted violently and disintegrated into a massive debris field site. 2 bow and stern halves landed nearly 2,000 feet apart. Back on ocean surface, over 1,500 victims floated in lifebelts. Water temperature was 28 degrees Fahrenheit below ocean freezing point. Hypothermia incapacitated human bodies in less than 15 minutes' time. Most people died not from drowning but from sudden cardiac arrest. Cold shock caused involuntary gasping and rapid extreme blood pressure spikes. Only lifeboats 4 and 14 returned to pick up floating survivors. Crew in most lifeboats feared panicked survivors would capsize their craft. Only 9 additional living survivors were pulled safely out of water. Chef Charles Joffin survived hours in water due to high alcohol consumption. Alcohol reduced his panic feeling but actually accelerated his heat loss rate. His survival was a rare biological miracle that defies medical expectations today. At 4 a.m., Carpathia arrived on scene and spotted lifeboats. Crew members pulled 705 exhausted survivors aboard ship deck safely. Captain Rostron ordered silent prayers for victims lost in freezing waters below. Carpathia turned toward New York, carrying the remaining living survivors home safely. News of disaster shocked global public and triggered immediate government inquiries. Now let us debunk popular myths that modern science has proven false. For decades, movies showed Iceberg cutting a massive 300-foot gash. Sonar scans of buried wreck proved there was no continuous long tier. Instead, iceberg impact caused 6 thin, narrow sliver openings along hull. Total surface area of all 6 openings was only 12 square feet. Another common myth claims ship sank in one solid, whole, unbroken piece. British Inquiry official reports pushed this intact theory for over 70 years, until Dr. Robert Ballard discovered split wreck field in 1985. Underwater video confirmed hull had snapped apart at surface before sinking down. Some historians claimed Captain Smith was drunk during night of impact event. Eyewitness testimony from surviving officers confirmed Smith was alert and sober. Another conspiracy theory claims Titanic was deliberately swapped with twin ship Olympic. Conspiracy theorists believed White Star Line staged sink for insurance money fraud. Material evidence completely disproves swap theory beyond any shadow of doubt. Thousands of recovered artifacts and wood paneling carry Titanic yard number 401. Olympic had yard number 400 stamped on every single structural part. Structural differences between ships make physical swap completely impossible to execute. It would have required months of work and thousands of shipyard workers. Secret swap could never be hidden from thousands of Belfast shipyard men. Science and historical records confirm Titanic was ship resting on seabed. The real tragedy of Titanic reveals how small mistakes compound dramatically. No single error sank ship, but rather a fatal domino sequence. If any single one of those factors had been slightly different, Titanic might have reached New York Harbor without any loss of life. If wireless operator had passed Mesaba ice warning directly to captain, ship would have slowed down or altered course southward around ice. If lookouts had binoculars, they might have spotted Iceberg seconds earlier, giving helmsman Hitchens enough distance to steer ship completely clear. If ship had hit Iceberg head-on instead of sideswiping along bow, crushing forces would damage only 2 forward collision bulkhead compartments. Heavy collision bulkheads were specially reinforced to absorb head-on impacts. Ship would have suffered severe nose damage but remained safely floating. Ironies of maritime physics meant trying to turn actually caused sinking. This tragic outcome forced a complete global revolution in maritime safety. In 1914, international conference established treaty known as SOLAS. Safety of life at sea regulations became strict law for ships worldwide. New laws mandated lifeboats for 100% of people on board. Compulsory 24-hour wireless radio watch was instituted for all passenger ocean ships. Emergency backup power generators were required on decks above waterline levels. International Ice Patrol was created to monitor Arctic icebergs drifting south. Ice Patrol ships and aircraft track every iceberg entering shipping lanes today. Not a single life has been lost to icebergs in North Atlantic lanes. Titanic tragic disaster transformed human safety standards across every modern ocean ship. Today, modern cruise liners carry advanced radar sonar and satellite thermal imaging. Satellite systems map ocean hazards in real time down to single meter. Double hull construction ensures outer tiers do not flood inner cargo spaces. Modern watertight bulkheads feature fully sealed sealing caps and automated doors. Steel used in modern ships is formulated with high impact flexibility. Low sulfur and phosphorus content prevents cold temperature brittlement from occurring. Automated welding replaced manual riveting, eliminating structural seam weakness completely today. Ship designers test every hull layout inside computer hydrodynamics wave simulations. Virtual stress testing identifies structural weak points before any steel is cut. Yet, despite all modern engineering, nature still demands ultimate respect at sea. Human overconfidence remains the most dangerous factor in any technological system. Titanic serves as a permanent warning against assuming anything is truly unsinkable. Today, wreck resting 2 miles deep faces a new biological force. Iron-devouring extremophile bacteria called Halomonas titanici are eating metal structure. These specialized bacteria consume iron minerals, creating delicate rustical formations everywhere. Rusticles slowly dissolve steel plates back into natural ocean floor sediment. Scientists estimate entire wreck will collapse into red dust by 2050. Ocean currents and deep water pressure accelerate structural deterioration every day. Captain Smith's famous cabin bathtub has already completely collapsed into debris. Deck roofs above grand staircase area are caving in rapidly now. High-resolution photogrammetry scans capture full digital twin before structure vanishes. Millions of ocean scans preserve her memory in perfect digital detail forever. Stories of brave human sacrifice remain preserved across history records forever. Musicians of Wallace Hartley Band played music until final moments came. They played Hymn Near My God to thee to calm fearful passengers. Chief Engineer Joseph Bell and his engineering crew stayed at posts, keeping ship lights burning brightly until minutes before final plunge down. Every single engineer perished keeping power alive for lifeboats to load. Wireless operators stayed at telegraph keys sending emergency signals until water entered. Postal clerks fought to save heavy mail bags from flooding mailroom. Ida and Isidore Strauss chose to remain together on boat deck. Ida refused seat in lifeboat to stay beside her beloved husband. Millionaires like John Jacob Astor helped women and children enter lifeboats. Before stepping back calmly onto deck, accepting his inevitable ocean fate, Margaret Brown earned nickname Unsinkable Molly Brown for leadership in lifeboat. She organized rowing efforts and kept survivors warm during freezing night. These acts of bravery illuminate human dignity during darkest crisis moments, reminding us that character shines brightest when everything else falls apart. Engineering lessons learned from Titanic continue saving millions of sailors today. Her legacy is written into every modern ship safety protocol enforced. When we look back at story of world's most famous ship, we see both incredible peak of human ambition and fragile nature. True progress requires combining powerful innovation with deep humility before ocean. Respecting natural world limits ensures tech serves humanity safely without failure. As ocean slowly dissolves iron hull into deep red ocean dust, lessons carved by her loss remain permanently etched in ocean history. We honor those 1,500 souls by continuing to build safer world. What part of Titanic engineering story surprised you most today here? Share your thoughts and favorite historical facts down in comments below. If you enjoyed discovering physics and history behind this famous disaster, hit like button and subscribe for more deep explainer journeys together. Thank you for watching and stay curious until our next adventure.